A terror to Australia was the wild colonial boy.
During Ben Hall's reign, the gang members were known to lay low and separate for a few weeks at a time for a holiday. Ben Hall would spend his time in the company of two women, Ellen Maguire and a young woman, Susan Pryor, who it is believed had a daughter with Hall. While at the end of March 1863, Gilbert headed back to Victoria with his brothers, Charles and James, then sailed with them across the Tasman to the New Zealand gold diggings. But before long, the lure of the highway brought Happy Jack Gilbert back to the Lachlan, and within weeks, Hall, Gilbert and O'Meally rejoined and once more set the colony alight with their exploits. July saw the gang active every day, bailing up travellers and farms, stores and coaches. By the end of August 1863, Ben Hall had recruited two new members to the gang, Mickey Burke, 21, and John Vane, 22. The two best friends were expert at horse stealing, with racehorses their speciality. Burke and Vane came from the Carcoar area, and although Burke was not wanted by the police, Vane had a warrant out for his arrest for robbery under arms. It was at this time that Hall's friend and part-time gang member Fred Lowry was shot and killed by Senior Sergeant Stevenson at Vardy's Inn on the Vale Creek. Stevenson suspected Lowry to be there from information he had received. He entered the inn and called on Lowry to surrender. A gunfight erupted, with Stevenson's first round striking the door handle of Lowry's room. Lowry's shot hit the sergeant in the right hand, exiting at his elbow. Both men advanced and fired. Lowry's shot went wide, but Stevenson's found its mark. Lowry staggered and dropped to the floor, mortally wounded. His dying words were, "Tell my brother I died game." The gang continued to bail up all and sundry, and at times gun battles ensued with the police. Until now, luck had played a hand in no one's death, but all that changed on the 1st of September 1863. Cootamundra storekeeper John Barnes and his employee Mr. Hanlow were bailed up by O'Meally and Vane, who demanded Barnes's horse and saddle. At O'Mealy's demand, Barnes put the spurs to his horse and galloped away. O'Meally fired his revolver at the fleeing Barnes, then gave chase, continuing to fire his revolver, leaving Vane to cover Hanlow. Barnes, at full gallop, enters the grounds of Wollongbean Station, limp in the saddle. As the horse veers an obstacle, Barnes falls to the ground, severely wounded. O'Meally approaches and bails up the owner of the station, Mr. Mackay, leaving Barnes on the ground, and refuses Barnes any medical help. At that moment, Mr. Barnes gives a heavy sigh and dies. O'Meally and Vane then steal Barnes's horse and equipment and rode off to rejoin Hall and Gilbert. O'Meally was now wanted for murder, and the gang accessories to murder. Earlier in the year, the gang had taken the entire township of Canoundra hostage for the night, with singing and shouting drinks, leaving the next day at daybreak. Once more, on the 12th of October 1863, at 8 o'clock in the evening, the gang rode into Canoundra, and as previously rounded up the entire town and held them at Robertson's Hotel. The local constable was arrested by Hall and forced to remain at the inn. The bushrangers then shouted drinks for everyone. Gilbert handed out cigars and sweets. They organised entertainment, music and a shooting competition. All travellers entering the town were also held, while the gang yarned about their exploits. After 3 days of festivities, the gang quietly rode away, and the next day held up the mail coach near Eugowra. The government now placed a £500 reward on Ben Hall and each of the gang members.
"I'll fight, but not surrender," cried the wild colonial boy. He fired a shot at Kelly, which did bring him to the ground, and he fired point blank at Davis,